Hello, I am Tatiana,
I'm Troy.
and this is Channel 13 Horror Rewind. How are you today, Troy?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am good. This is our inaugural episode of our horror movie review podcast. So let's kick it off, yeah?
Yeah, just to fill everybody in on kind of why we're wanting to do this, both Tati and I are huge horror movie fans. We found ourselves, because we're also on a paranormal team called Experivit Paranormal, and we found ourselves talking about horror movies all the time when we were out at different locations doing paranormal stuff. So we figured, why not create a podcast where we can talk about horror movies? And so we're planning on doing this weekly for well, it's until we run out of content at least, but let's hope we don't get to that point.
Yeah, next couple months, I'd say.
Yeah. So we'll tell you a little more about it, all of that at the end of this episode and what you can expect over the next few weeks. But for today, we're going to talk about what got us into horror movies, what our first horror movies were, and just talk about those and our experience, what we can remember watching those for the first time. And we'll talk you through what those movies are about in case you didn't see them and just give our feelings and thoughts on everything.
Yeah, where it all began. And I don't know if Troy will recommend some of these movies to people because there might be some strong feelings there between
Yeah.
our first horror movies. But yeah, it's really just to give that experience of, where it all began and everyone has had, oh, what was your first horror movie and how it traumatized you. So let's get into one that we kind of share mutually in a similar, not similar way, but the same franchise, everyone's
Mhm.
favorite Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes. So I'll kick us off. Um, what I recall, I was very young and my parents' really good family friends came over and their daughter, who is, I don't know how much older, but she ended up becoming my babysitter. So she had to be considerably older than me. She brought over A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I'm talking maybe the late 80s because the house we were living in at the time, we moved out in the early 90s. But I just remember being a kid. She brought it over, we watched it, and then they were getting ready to leave and I wanted to watch the movie again. And they were like, "Oh no, we have to leave." And I threw a huge temper tantrum and flipped out because I guess I liked the movie that much. I wanted to watch it all over again, but wasn't allowed to. But for those of you who are not familiar with A Nightmare on Elm Street, it's about several Midwestern teenagers fall prey to Freddy Krueger. Everybody should know who he is. I don't care if you like horror movies or not. You should know who Freddy Krueger is.
Yeah, he's an icon.
A disfigured midnight mangler who preys on the teenagers in their dreams, which in turn kills them in reality. After investigating the phenomenon, Nancy, who's the main character in the movie, begins to suspect that a dark secret kept by her and her friend's parents, we'll get into that, may be the key to unraveling the mystery. But can Nancy and her boyfriend Glenn, played by Johnny Depp, and I believe that was his first serious movie role,
Yep.
can her and Glenn solve the puzzle before it's too late?
I will say I feel like Nancy doesn't get enough final girl like street cred. It's all about Lori and Halloween, but she's great.
Well, what I like about Heather Langenkamp, if I'm
Mhm.
pronouncing it right, that's who plays Nancy. She goes to all those movie cons, those horror cons. So
Mhm.
she's really approachable. And you're right, because I don't know. She was also in the third movie too.
Mhm.
And then she was in New Nightmare.
Yep.
So you're right. I don't know why she doesn't get like the same level of attention or that Scream Queen level
Right? Yeah,
that
underrated.
Jamie Lee Curtis was getting for Halloween. So that is a really interesting point. So the first thing I wanted to point out is, well, when you think about the entire Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and I said this before, I really enjoy the first, I'll say 4 movies. And then I feel like during the 4th movie, Freddy starts to get a little too comical and become like a jokester.
I mean, he's always had that like comedic, part of him, but it does get a little bit more outrageous, I feel like,
Mhm.
especially in the one I'm gonna talk about next.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it was more darker comedy at the beginning, and it started to lean more, less dark, less dark, less dark.
Yeah, and, you watch the first one, and then you watch, like, the 5th one,
Mm,
and it's like, is this really the same
right.
serial killer, like,
Yeah.
villain? Like, come on. In the first one, I mean, it was actually scary. It was, him haunting people in their dreams, and
Mhm,
he did mess around with them, I would say. He kind of psychologically messed around with them before he would kill them,
mhm.
but it was more like in a manner to freak them out and to give him their fear, because that's what
Yeah,
made him stronger.
right.
Um, and that's what Johnny Depp and Heather Langenkamp talk about on the bridge in that movie. If you remember, they talk about fear and how that can be used by villains or serial killers, Freddy himself, to gain power.
Mhm.
I'll say my favorite kill about, if you're allowed to say it,
Yeah, of course.
the most unique kill, and I don't know how they filmed this, was when Tina was getting killed in the bedroom. It was when Nancy, Glenn, Tina, and Tina's boyfriend, Rod, were all at Tina's house. Her mom or parents were away, so they all slept over. And her and Rod were in one room, and Freddie got her in the middle of one of her dreams, and she was just flying around the room getting cut up. So I don't even know how they would film that back in the 80s. So
I mean, that
that
was
was always
terrifying to
interesting.
watch as a kid. That
Yeah.
scene, it was really rough.
Yeah. And yeah, so let alone that, but there's also the classic theme song and the counting, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Mm.
That's all classic from that movie and from that movie series and franchise. My favorite scene, we did my favorite kill, but I think my favorite scene is also involving Tina. It's
Your
not like I
favorite?
didn't like her or anything.
You
I don't
love
have a
her.
vendetta against her. It was when she was awoken, if you remember, to rocks hitting her window. And so she came out, and this is one of those moments where you're like, "What are you doing? Like, why would you do that?" Like,
Don't do that.
yeah, like walking into a dark room or just
Mhm.
somewhere you shouldn't go. She goes outside to go see who's throwing rocks at her window. And mind you, she had already dreamt about Freddy. I don't know if you picked up on that, but in one of the first scenes of the movie, he like scratches her as she's woken up, and her nightgown has
Mhm.
holes in it and scratches. So she should have known not to go outside, but she did. And it's a horror movie from the 80s. So she goes outside and eventually finds Freddy, or Freddy finds her, and he starts coming down the alley out back of her house, but he has like huge arms, and they're like stretched out and scraping like garage doors and stuff. And I just thought that was really cool the way they did that. Again, I don't know how they did that. I think I watched a video saying like they had to put something huge in his
Mhm.
arms to extend them because there's no CGI back then.
And, like, that movie holds up because the first one, it just holds up, like, it still stands today, even with the
Yeah.
effects, and it beats out a lot of modern horror movies, even with just the simple effects that they did do, and the cast and the eeriness is all a perfect formula.
Yeah.
It just I watched all of the franchise, and because I wanted to be, putting myself as an adult compared to when I was a kid, is it gonna still hold up? Is it still gonna be just as scary? And
Yeah.
I ranked them all just, for my own ranking, in my iPhone notes, but yeah, still comes out as number 1 out of all of them.
And on that topic, like it's hard to find classics like in today's world because everybody just used jump scares. Everybody wants to use CGI.
Yeah. Or
I'm
to
like,
remake.
yeah, or they remake what they've already made, and it's
Mhm.
terrible.
Yeah.
But I like the old practical effects,
Yeah.
and I think we should go back to doing that.
I agree. And I think the music and the sound effects is my biggest
Yeah.
gripe is I mean, one of the movies I'll talk about after this, and one of the movies you're gonna talk about too, is just there is sound with everything almost, even if it's just like a constant one note. It creates an atmosphere that I think a lot of movies are lacking nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. So then moving on to,
Your favorite.
well, I did not yet, but before we get to your story, the other thing I wanted to just point out, I don't think I've realized about A Nightmare on Elm Street, and this might be true for all of the other movies, is the whole movie a dream, one dream that Nancy's having. Do we know the answer to that?
See, I've never gotten that until you mentioned it, and
Yeah.
then when you mentioned I watched it back and I was like, I could see, but has that ever been confirmed?
I don't know. I'll have to look that up, but
It's a dream
if you
within a dream within a little bit of
well,
Inception.
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, at the end of the movie, after she defeats Freddy
Mhm.
and he's right-handed, and he goes to stab her and she turns her back on again, that's another thing that her and Glenn talked about on the bridge. They lose their power if you turn their back to him and you show no more fear.
Mhm.
So she did that and he just like disappeared.
Yeah.
And then she opens the door to her mom's bedroom and walks out onto the front stoop. And it's daytime. She's dressed for school. Her mom's alive again. All her friends pull up in the car again. So it kind of leads you to believe it was just one big movie long dream or dreams within
I
a dream.
I think you could also say that maybe it's not one big dream, but, like, by the end of it, the purpose of Freddy is to create these universes where you don't know what's real and if you're dreaming. So, not that it was a whole dream, but by the end, she can't she's stuck in Freddy's world where he could prop her into a dream, go back to reality, back and forth
Yeah.
pretty seamlessly, like how the movie is. It shows a very seamless transition.
Yeah.
So him just being like, "Bloop, you're in a nightmare now again."
Yeah, I guess that could be true as well. And then, I think about all the other movies and how they play out. But in the third movie, Nancy, she dies for real and she doesn't come back.
Mhm.
And, people, I guess in the other movies, they end up dying for real and they don't come back. So I don't know.
Who
I'll
knows?
try and find out if that was ever the intention for it to be one big, massive dream.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
But let's talk quick about the mom and how much of a wreck she is. She hides alcohol bottles in every possible place you can hide them. Behind her linen, in the kitchen drawers, not in the refrigerator, like in kitchen drawers, in her bedroom, on her nightstand. She has these things hidden everywhere. And I guess again, I didn't realize why she's an alcoholic. Well, when I got a little bit older and I thought about it, her parents and the other parents of the Elm Street children killed Freddy.
Mhm.
And so not only that, she has his knives in their furnace in the basement. So I guess I understand that. And I'm assuming that's why her parents got divorced as well. And I think it was said like the only people who seem to have decent parents, or only person who seemed to have different decent parents in the movie is Glenn, but they're super overprotective.
Mhm. Moms needs a therapist for sure.
Yeah. Um, well, that wraps it up for the original Nightmare on Elm Street. That's everything I had for that. If you want to jump over to yours and give your story.
Yeah. So another nightmare movie, maybe not everyone's favorite, not my favorite either, but Freddy's Dead, which is the sixth installment. It's a standalone sequel in the Nightmare on Elm Street, and essentially Freddy is back and he manipulates this teenager with amnesia to escape this asylum and find new victims. And then it follows, his long lost daughter. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. But like you were saying earlier, it is a lot different to the first one.
Yeah.
This one does feel very like comedic and it's not scary. Not
No,
at all. There
no.
are some good scenes, which I will give them that, but it is like a lot of like the clay animation and which I enjoy and I appreciate the artistry of it. Um, but it's just a different vibe. It's not that classic Halloween under the covers movie. But how I first saw it, which was one of my first horror movies, I think I was like 5 years old, and I walked in the living room, and my parents were watching it, so I didn't even see it fully through. But my parents are watching it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, can I watch it?" My dad, of course, was, "Don't let her watch it. This isn't for her." My mom's like, "She'll be fine, whatever, like, let
If
her
there's
watch it."
any Nightmare on Elm Street to watch, as a kid, it's probably that one.
Yeah, but no, it did traumatize me, and so I ended up watching it, and I didn't even watch the whole thing, but the scene that again, you're listening to this horror movie podcast, so spoiler alert, but there's this scene where the long lost daughter goes back into the memories of what happened in her childhood, and there's this scene of Freddy, just like stabbing the mom in the backyard, and I don't know why that freaked me out so bad just because I think it looked really real. It wasn't any of the, fun kills, and
Mm.
I had a nightmare, and, I really had a hard time with that scene for a couple years until I grew up more, but, I did rewatch it recently, and I could see how that would be scary to a child, but I, again, like I said, rewatched all of them back and ranked them, and that one sure that might be the end of your list for you, but I
Yeah.
put it, I think, as number 6 in the list of my favorites to least favorite. So it's like middle of the pack. It's not as bad as like the most recent like revival of Nightmare on Elm Street that was absolutely horrible,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
it's not scary, and I know you have some thoughts about it.
I do.
Hard to finish.
I remembered very quickly why I've only seen this movie maybe 2 or 3 times, and
Mhm.
it's because I love horror movies, and I
Right.
do not like when people mixing comedy with them. And, I knew Freddy as the vicious killer,
Mhm.
not as someone who's gonna be goofing around, like, over the top goofing around.
Mhm.
From when he hits the guy with the bus and he's dropping one-liners to the deaf guy.
Like the Wizard of Oz scenes, he's on the broom.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, that was before the bus, I think. And then, he's behind the deaf guy, like, making all kinds of funny faces and stuff before he kills
Mhm.
him. Again, creative with the Q-tip through the head thing. And then another one when he's playing the video game and the kid's in the video game. Pretty creative, but he's dropping one-liners and stuff, and it's like
Mhm.
and he's like, "I beat my high score." It's like, "Oh my god."
It's like it's definitely one of those movies where, there used to be the culture of watching horror movies, before the decline of movie theaters, but the movie theaters where you go in and the audience would is very like audience participatory where everyone's laughing and,
Yeah,
Freddy's funny and stuff like that. So it's kind of more that vibe instead of, yeah, under your covers, like, oh my gosh, like gripping my seat, kind of scary.
yeah, I agree
And I
with you.
will say the scene though, okay, so the mom scene with the kill, that freaked me out, and I still think that's disturbing. And then the ear scene where he has a chalkboard. Obviously, he
Yep,
transports this guy into the dream. He has a chalkboard, and then with his finger knives is, like, scraping the chalkboard, and then the eardrum is, like, popping out. That's disgusting.
yeah.
That's scary and gross.
It was creative. The scene would have been great if he wasn't creeping up behind the deaf guy doing all of those dances and stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I would have just left that out of it. Why can't he just be scary?
I know.
The one thing I will end with for the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff is they did redeem themselves with New Nightmare. So,
I agree.
I think wasn't that right after Freddy's dead? Not right after, but it was the next movie after, I think. And
Yes,
so with that, they went back to the origins and made him terrifying again
yes.
instead of comedic. Like, I don't think he was comedic at all in that movie. Like, they took him back to what the original was.
And I will say other than the first one, I am such a diehard Freddy versus Jason. That movie crossover changed my life, and that's one where he was still gruesome, I would say, but kept the one-liners, and I think
A little bit, yeah.
he played very well with Jason's energy.
Yes.
That movie is so iconic, and no one can ever, like, change my mind. I'll die on that hill.
One thing that was funny about that movie, and I don't want to get too far down the road or down the rabbit
Yeah,
hole with that.
nightmare hole.
Um, all of a sudden, Jason's afraid of water when in the other movies he goes in the water. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like in the sixth movie, he goes into the water and then he gets chained down there.
Yeah.
Seventh movie's in the water, eighth movie's in the water. Why does all of a sudden he become afraid of water? I don't know, but
I
just
think if he, like, his memory comes back and then he's like, "Oh, wait, I'm scared of water." Who
that was
knows?
always something I found funny that Freddy attacks him in the dream with water
Yeah.
and he's afraid
Yeah.
of water all of a sudden. It's like,
Yeah.
I know you drowned, but you went into water on your own in many of the other movies, but
He's not
that
the
is
first.
for a different week and different episode to talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So, our second movies we wanted to talk about for today's episode of taking it back to the beginning and where it all began. For me, if you can't already see, I'm a huge Halloween fan. That's my favorite franchise. I have a lot of Michael Myers masks. And the second horror movie I remember seeing again when I was very young as a kid was Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2, not the remake by Rob Zombie, obviously. But I remember, again, being in the basement and my sister had a friend over and I wanted to see what they were doing. And I walked in and they were like, we're watching Halloween. We're watching Michael Myers. And I thought she said Michael Wires. And I'm like, I asked that. And she's like, no, just sit down if you want to watch this. And be in here and don't make any noise. So I watched that and loved it. For those who are not aware, Halloween 2 is about after failing to kill stubborn survivor Laurie, and we'll get to a big reveal in this movie about Laurie and Michael. And after taking a bullet or six from his former psychiatrist, Dr. Sam Loomis, Michael Myers has followed Laurie to the Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, where she's admitted for Michael's attempt on killing her. The institution proves to be particularly suited to serial killers, however, as Michael cuts, stabs, and slashes his way through the hospital staff to reach his favorite victim. And I would have to agree, this is a very poorly run hospital if this guy can just get in and start taking people out without anybody noticing. They have one security guard, Dr. Garrett, who ends up taking a hammer to the head. And even with locked doors, Michael still gets in. And I have to admit a few different things. I also have a dog named Loomis, and he's named after Dr. Loomis. I have a
So
lot of
cute.
thanks. I have a lot of Michael Myers masks. My favorite version of Michael is from this movie. He was played by Dick Warlock, and Dick Warlock made him more of a zombie type of Michael in this movie. It almost appears as if Michael had died. The human version of him had died at the end of the first movie, and he's almost reincarnated as a zombie Michael now. He has one focus, and that's getting Laurie no matter what. The other thing I want to reveal is this is also my favorite Michael Myers mask of any other masks ever. And it's because it is still the mask that they used from the first movie. It's just very warped because Deborah Hill, the producer, after they wrapped filming the first Halloween, she took the mask home and she was a heavy smoker. And I think it was on her mantle just sitting there. And the smoke warped the mask a little bit. It disfigured it, discolored it a little bit. And that's why I like it so much, because it looks so much cooler. And it looks like it's been worn, even though those two movies take place in the same night
Hmm.
within the actual universe. It
Isn't there
looked,
someone famous who the mask is, like, modeled after?
oh, yeah, the guy from Star Trek, William Shatner. It's a William
Yeah.
Shatner mask that they took and just spray painted white,
Mhm.
did stuff with the hair, and that became Michael Myers. Cut the eye holes a little bit larger. There's a video on YouTube, by the way, of the I won't be able to remember his name now, but he's the one who did the mask in the original movie, and he did a YouTube video just showing how he did it. It's
Yeah.
so simple, but that's what they did back in 1978. Going back to what we talked about, how much cooler movies were back then with being so
Simplicity.
simple. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, yeah. And Michael is trying to he does get into the hospital and he's trying to get to Laurie. And we end up finding out in this series of all the Halloween movies, Laurie is Michael's sister. And that's why he wants her gone. He wants to kill, I guess, his bloodline. So if
Yeah.
you remember from the
Sibling
original
rivalry.
movie, what's that?
Sibling rivalry.
Right. And from the first movie, he killed his first sister and he goes to a mental institution. He breaks out, tries to kill her. Now he gets into the hospital. My favorite scene, well, I'll start with the scene that I first remember watching when I was a kid that night. It was when Laurie is running from Michael and they're in the basement and she backs into Dr. Garrett, who's very heavy set and he's hanging dead. And she sees Michael coming in and somehow has time to climb up into this very small window that goes into this elevator room. And then like 2 seconds later, Michael's in there. So he's much better at climbing into windows, I guess. And then she goes out into the parking lot which is then becomes my favorite scene. She sees Dr. Loomis and there's like a constable and someone else pulls up. They go in the hospital, see what's going on, and she falls out of the car she was hiding in. And as she starts crawling and limping towards the door, Michael comes out from behind a wall over on this side of the parking lot. So he got out a different way, but he comes out from behind the wall and the music starts playing, the classic Halloween theme song.
So good.
And yeah. And again, this is my favorite version of the Halloween theme song because it has the organs in it and the synthesizers and stuff. So yeah, he chases her. She just barely gets through the door and then he just busts right through it and gets shot again. So yeah, those are my favorite scenes that I remember as a kid watching it. And then it's always going to be my favorite scene.
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, I like the Halloween. I mean, at least the a lot of them have it, but the first person POV, like, camera style is, again, very simple, but
Right.
it is so like, to this day, it's just creepy. It's so creepy, like, looking through his eyes, and, the first one, the second one, they just never get old. So good. Classic Halloween movies.
And I also think that was something that John Carpenter did that no one else did before was put
Yeah.
a mask over
Mhm.
the camera. So you're looking out through the eye holes of the mask and you become Michael.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
it's so cool, and I don't know why more movies these days don't do that. I feel like every now and then you'll get a scene or 2, maybe here and there with, like, that first person POV camera style, but with how well it worked on Halloween, I'm surprised, we don't see that mimicked more often.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, again, you're talking about another huge franchise like the Nightmare on Elm Street
Mhm.
franchise. They had a lot of them. They had different storylines they went with. Did you ever see like the diagram of how like Lori's his sister, go this way with the movies? Oh,
Mhm.
Lori is not his sister, but it's still Lori. Go this way with it. And then there's the Jamie. So yeah, I mean, it gets crazy. Not as crazy as Texas Chainsaw Massacre got with prequels and sequels and all
Gosh,
that.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I will say I'm not a fan of the Rob Zombie remakes.
They I watched one of them last Halloween, and it's pretty brutal. Like, the
Well, yeah,
goats I mean, that is Rob Zombie, is his
right.
style, but I hadn't seen it in so long, and it's just, oof, kinda makes you a little squeamish, and I'm not a squeamish person, but just the brutality of a kid just, beating another kid with a baseball bat is aggressive.
Yeah. Well, I have
But I
mixed
agree,
feelings.
they're not the best. I know some people hate them, I don't mind them.
The second one I absolutely hate, I'm sorry,
Okay, okay.
because Michael talks in it, and
Valid.
that's the number one rule. Michael does not talk. And the second rule is you can't kill Michael.
Mhm,
So I don't like Halloween ends either. But yeah, I mean, the first one was all right. I wasn't a fan of the kid kind of being somewhat normal until he wasn't.
mhm.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think he went a little bit wrong about the whole thing, but it's still decent. The second one, I won't watch it anymore.
Yeah, I feel
But
like we
yeah,
need to do, like, a ranking of maybe down the line of
yeah.
the Halloween and the Nightmare movies. I would be curious to see what yours is.
I will say the one that came out in 2018, which brought Jamie Lee Curtis back, I really liked.
I thought it was very good.
It was a good storyline. Again, they removed the fact that they were siblings, though, so
Mm,
that's taking the other path with her in it.
mhm.
But I really liked the storyline. And Halloween Kills started getting a little crazy with how much he can take a physical beating and just still wreck the whole town.
Yeah,
But, again, that's all for another week
another
if
segment.
we do Halloween week where we just talk about Halloween movies. So I don't
Maybe
wanna
we
get too
do it
far
in
down.
Halloween, like a Halloween week in Halloween,
October, yeah.
or in
And
October, yeah.
we should do a Friday the 13th week, this summer for summer
Yes,
camp and stuff.
yes.
But yeah, I don't wanna go too far down the rabbit hole because I know you have another movie you wanna talk about too.
Yes, and let me bring up my little synopsis. So, Pumpkinhead, I'll just give you a quick little summary. So, this has a spoiler in the summary, which I think is a little weird, but I'm gonna say it anyways. So, After his son dies in a hit and run accident, Ed Harley seeks revenge against the teenagers responsible. With the help of a local witch, summons the vengeful demon Pumpkinhead to hunt and kill the group of friends. So this is from 1988, and it was a directorial debut of special effects artist Stan Winston. And I mean, Pumpkinhead, just as a creature, when you do see him, if you haven't seen him,
Yeah.
he's just a cool looking guy. Very creepy, even nowadays, looking back on it. But how I watched this movie, so I want to say this is probably my second horror movie, or second that I could remember at least. So Freddy's Dead was first. This is when I was in third grade. I was at a sleepover, and I'm goody two shoes. I can't watch anything bad. It has to be G, maybe PG. And my friend put on a channel, like just a horror channel. I don't even know what it was. And I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna get in trouble. My parents are gonna know somehow. Like, I'm gonna get grounded." I was in 3rd grade, and, it was Pumpkinhead, and so I was like, "Okay, fine, fine, like, let's watch it." And she started over, and we watched it from the beginning, and the entire time I'm just like, one, I think 50% of the fear was from being caught of watching a scary movie, and then the other half was from the actual movie. But yeah, we paused it so many times because I was like, "This is scary. I don't know. I don't know." Like when the scene where the son dies, again, that to me is a spoiler alert. I don't know why it's in the synopsis, but that scene and the actor who plays the dad is so scary just on his own. Like, he has such a good, angry, like, evil face. So he's just kind of freaky in general. And the group of kids is like your standard,
Partiers.
cliche group of kids where there's the good girl and the good guy and the jerk off guy, bad
Yeah.
boy. And I will say none of the kills, I did rewatch it recently, none of the kills are like remarkably memorable or
Yeah.
gory. I do enjoy gore and I do enjoy creative kills, but a lot of the kills they don't really show. I feel like he takes the person and pulls him behind the cabin, and then he throws the dead body, and it's like, okay, well, I want to
Yeah.
let me in on the action. Like, I want to see some stuff here.
Probably had
Uh,
to do with the budget
yeah,
back
yeah,
then.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
Um, but I think this movie has become a little bit, or not a little bit, a lot of a cult classic. But even nowadays, it's not going to be as iconic as a Halloween or a Nightmare on Elm Street. So it's one of the ones where during the month of October, I like to recommend movies to people who maybe aren't the biggest, horror fans or haven't seen that much. That's one where I can tell them, you can stomach this. It's not gonna give you nightmares, it's not gonna freak you out, but it's a fun monster movie that I recommend.
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying about Pumpkinhead, the creature, kind
Mhm.
of it seems like to me like a combination of different creatures and monsters, almost like it like kind of looks like an alien,
Yeah,
but
very
then it's
alien-esque.
huge and tall and
Mhm.
reminds me kind of like Predator a little bit.
Mhm.
And then yeah, I mean it's almost like a few monsters mixed together,
Yeah.
which is cool. So yeah, I liked what they did with that creature, and I agree. Some of the kills weren't as awesome or gory, or they didn't show them as much as they could have. But it's one of those movies that you just remember watching as a kid, and because of it, you develop certain feelings and memories about it. So you're always going to watch it, even if it does suck. But I'm not
Yeah.
saying this one sucks. There's other movies I can tell you that do suck, but I still watch them just because I saw them as a kid and it's just fun. It's
Mhm.
nostalgic. I did want to ask a question.
Ooh, okay, I love a question.
So this kid gets mowed down by a dirt bike
Yeah,
and his dad takes him home. He
right.
doesn't take him to a hospital or like a doctor. I know it was like a small town or something weird. There has to be somebody around, like a doctor or something.
Yeah, the doctor was off that day, apparently.
He just takes him home and like gets a wet rag. It's like that's not going to fix it,
And
you know?
also, I will even say the way they have the death scene of the kid, he gets hit by a motorbike, but, like, he kinda just tumbles down, like, it's not like he gets chopped in half or anything, and he's still, like, coherent at the time or semi-coherent, but it just feels a little anticlimactic, the death, where he's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, oh my gosh, like, maybe you got a concussion or, like, a broken bone," but I couldn't see him just fully dying.
Well, if I remember correctly, it didn't, like, even land on him, right?
I
It
know.
landed and then hit him.
Yes.
So it's not like it was going like it's not a truck.
No.
So, could have done
I do
better
have a
with
problem with
that.
that for sure, yeah.
And then, yeah, that totally gave me Thomas J vibes when he lost his glasses
Mhm.
and they were, like, handing him back to him. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, he can't see without his glasses," you know? It's like
Yeah.
but, again, one of those movies where I don't think they intend for people to laugh at certain things, but you just have to because it's just too funny how things don't make sense sometimes in these movies.
Yeah, it's fun, and some of my favorite horror movies are honestly the ones where it makes you feel like it's fall, it makes you feel like it's Halloween. Obviously, with a movie with the name Pumpkinhead is gonna have, some
Yeah,
correlation there, but it just it's the overall atmosphere, the actors, the writing, the music, sound effects, and everything. It just is the classic October horror movie where, it takes you back to being a kid and eating candy out of a pillowcase and, scary
yeah.
movie up and you're trading candy. And that is some of my favorite kind of horror, is just the nostalgia. Because I know everyone just wants to go back to simpler times. So,
Yeah, and speaking of soundtracks, I know, like, Halloween is obviously a big one, Nightmare on Elm
mhm,
Street. We'll be doing another podcast specifically on soundtracks and composers and who
yeah.
our favorites are, who are the best in our opinions, but I did wanna ask you another quick question before we wrap up.
Yes.
What is your favorite go-to food when you go to the movies?
Ooh. I am the biggest candy person. I'm not huge on popcorn, but I know this is a controversial candy, but Twizzlers, I know some people say they taste like wire, but I love the taste of wire. I will devour I have to get, like, the 2.5 family pack of Twizzlers when I go
Oh,
to
gee.
the movies or when I watch it at home. RIP my body. But yeah, Twizzlers for sure, like, so good. I'm gonna have to buy a pack after this.
Well, now I know what to bring on our paranormal trips when we
And
go.
that's what I bring, remember? Everyone's like, "Why do you have Twizzlers?" When we go ghost hunting, and we'll have to have an episode on, some of our ghost hunts, and maybe we even film one of these in a haunted asylum.
We do.
Yeah.
We do need to film at a haunted
Yeah.
location, so
Yeah. But
probably not one that's falling apart, but one that has, like, a nice table that we can sit at or something in it. We'll see what we're doing.
yeah, and there's not, like, bats flying at our head or
You're
anything.
right. Yeah, that too.
But yeah, on the ghost hunts, Twizzlers is another I don't know, maybe it's like a safety blanket or something, a Twizzler. What's your
At the movie theater, I need a huge Coke,
Mm.
Milk Duds, and then
Ooh,
popcorn.
okay. Classic.
Yeah.
That's just like a classic combination right there.
Yeah, because I need sugar, I need salt, and then I need
Mhm.
caffeine, so
I do agree, like a Coke or like a Sprite if I wanna really burn my sinuses. That sounds so good. It's been a while since I've been to the movie theater, and I mean, I feel like that's a point we'll touch on in a lot of these is movie culture so different compared to
yeah.
what it used to be, especially for horror, is a little hard to watch in a public theater.
Yeah, especially if people are talking, like, I need to
Mhm.
focus and
Yeah.
just don't talk, and then you get the high schoolers, they
It's
do
the
a lot of
youth. The
chit-chatting and
youth.
shining their phones around and giggling.
I know we're now adults where we're like, "Ugh, those darn kids, get
Yeah,
them out of there."
yeah.
All
Well,
right.
alright.
So that was our first episode. This is meant to be very, fun. Me and Troy, again, we love horror. This is for people who love horror or are new to horror. My, passion project with my personal life is I try to get friends and people I know to give horror a shot. And there's always something for everyone. And we're creating a community here where you guys can recommend movies to us, vice versa. We can just discuss all of our hot takes. What do we have coming for the next couple weeks? Do you want to give them a little snapshot, a tease, if you will?
Sure. Now, I mean, some of these names are interesting, but this is what we came up with. So this week was Where It All Began. Our next
Mhm.
week is going to be The Shocker, and that is for movies and scenes within movies that completely just shocked us and shook us. And I think when we talk about those, you'll kinda understand where we're coming from because they're kind of known for it, but then
Mhm.
I think we'll probably bring up some that maybe you don't necessarily know, or you might not have been surprised or shocked by them. We'll move on to Ready Player One. So that one's about horror movie video games that are also horror movies. So I'm big into video games as well. That should be really fun to talk about those. And we have a week for Are You Serious? These are more more of the movies that are frustrating. You know, they have main characters that just do stupid things. Nobody's making good decisions. If you would have used logic, the movie would have been over in 2 minutes. You know, we'll do ones for TV. We'll do ones for found footage, ones for family horror, where it's like the whole family gets in on the carnage. Think Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Horror movies that maybe nobody has seen. We want to do a week for indie movies to give them a shout out. And if possible, it'd be nice down the road to have some of maybe these lesser known directors or film creators on the podcast, just talking about their experience and whatnot. So that'd be cool too. We'll have international horror, and then best of and most anticipated for this year and going into 2017. 2027. I'm a few
We
years
just
behind.
transported back 10 years.
A few years behind. But yes,
Yeah.
so that's just to give everybody the next 11, 12 weeks of what we have planned so far. Um, I know there's a lot of horror podcasts out there. If you want to hear certain things, if you want to be a guest, just give us ideas. That's what we're here for. It's for fun. We're not getting paid for this, but it's just for fun. We love this. So feel free to give us ideas. We're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It'll take a little bit till we get all that going and fully up and running. So just bear with us. But yeah, feel free to make recommendations.
Yeah. And thanks for listening. I mean, the support, like Troy said, we're doing this just for fun. We love it. And you guys are here and you listened all the way through because I'm assuming you love it too. So we appreciate you. Give all the socials a follow. They'll be linked in the bio somewhere that I am not looking at right now, but they will be there. So please give us a follow. And then, yeah, DM us any ideas, anything you want to talk about, hot takes. Still love a hot take. And we'll just
Or
go from
just
there.
your general funny comments about the movies we talk about,
Yeah,
favorite
please.
scenes,
Yeah.
anything we talk about. It's all
Yeah.
fair
And if,
game.
yeah. And any movie suggestions too. We're always Me and Trey, I mean, we kind of started this because we're just constantly sending each other movies back and forth of just random, Tubi horror movies. So please
And Shutter.
send
If you
them
don't
our
have a
way.
Shutter account, get a Shutter account 'cause it's so
Get a
good.
Shutter account. Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you next
Thanks.
week.
Bye, guys.